Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna be reacting to a video called Our Home in Provence Costs $1,200,000 Affordable Living in France. So I'm guessing, because if you compare it to the USA, $1,200,000, like I think it's a pretty cheap house. So I agree it's affordable, but to live there in the south of France, I thought isn't the south of France, like Provence, I think it's the south of France, and isn't it living there a little bit expensive? I don't know, I would think, because isn't that Cannes and all of that sort of like the Riviera? I don't know, but I'm excited, so let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
What's going on? Why don't the French like us? Why don't the French like Americans? And he was really taken aback, and now I feel very silly having asked that question. Couldn't believe that people were living this lifestyle. No one seemed to be really in a rush. I don't make a lot of money, and I am living very, very well in the south of France. Bonjour everyone, I'm Tula Rampont and I am the France correspondent for International Living, and we're here in my backyard in the south of France, and I'm going to tell you all about why I moved to this beautiful country and what I love about living here.
Because it's cheaper if you can afford that in the south of France.
It's cheaper than the US. France since 2010. We are just outside the larger city of Toulon, which is considered the French Riviera between Marseille and Nice. This is the southeastern portion of the country, which is classically known in the hearts of minds who love it as the south of France, or Provence. First of all, it's just incredibly beautiful. That's why we chose this area. Secondly, it reminds me a lot of Southern California because people are out all the time. Things are happening. The cafes are bustling. You go to the seaside. There's beautiful, beautiful Provençal hilltop villages. It's a very dynamic area. Of course,
they have the lavenders.
One thing that really surprised me that I didn't expect to love is that there are 4 distinct seasons here. So we do get enough rain, and I do have 4 separate wardrobes, sets of clothing, which I never had in Southern California. So
because it's sunny all year.
Green, it's lush, it's beautiful. We have the vineyards. It's just a very, very pretty place to live. So that's why we chose the south, and we live 10 minutes away from Toulon. We lived in Toulon for about 7 years in 2 different apartments, one we rented and another one we purchased. And we are now in a village because we wanted a house with a little bit of a garden. So the name of our village, it's quite funny. It's called Oulioul, which comes from the word French word olive, which means olive. So our village
technically all names are invented.
Olive orchards, olive trees, and there is even a local mill you can take your olive harvest to have it pressed for.
Oh my God! You have your own olive oil?
Things you can think about of living in the south of France, in the area that is Provence. So
we'll be there tomorrow.
Go ahead and go through also why I chose this country in the first place, and specifically why I continue to love living here. First of all, I'm from Ventura, California, and one of the things that really shaped me in my life was I was a first-generation college student, so of course I had a lot of help and assistance along the way, but financially I kind of did it all on my own, and I was coming up on my 30th birthday and I had never really traveled, so I decided that was the time, and I took a trip around Europe, and we went to Italy and Switzerland and France. Couldn't believe that people were living this lifestyle. No one seemed to be really in a rush. Of course, there were people working, but the real priority was on spending time with friends and family, and you could just feel the slower pace of life, and I felt like just a weight being lifted off me. I didn't really realize how busy and how hectic my life was in Southern California, and it really opened my eyes. I
think that's very interesting because I think a lot of people don't really realize like the pace of kind of like the life that they're living. I think that can be applied to other things as well, but you don't really take a good look at like what you're seeing because you're living your life, so you're not actually like making a lot of, I don't know, analysis on it, and maybe sometimes you kind of like need to take a step back, and when you're outside of it all is that you're looking at, oh wow, like life is very different and their lives are very different from mine. So sometimes I think you need to like take a step back because you're not really like noticing or realizing those things because you're just living your life, and I think that's one of the great things about traveling.
I loved France. I thought it was beautiful, but I really felt like I couldn't For one, I didn't speak French. I feel like I had a hard time accessing what was going on with the culture. People seemed standoffish, to be completely honest. I had different experiences. I stayed for a week on my own in Paris, and nobody really talked to me. I felt lonely. And then later on, I thought it was a big city, but still, I don't know. I guess I expected more at the time, but I had a really wonderful experience in a restaurant recommended by one of my guidebooks, where the owner actually spoke English, and I went on my own as a single lady, and he spent time to explain the menu to me and just ask me where I was from, what I was doing. And that was really impressive, because not only did I have one of the best meals of my entire life, it was the first time I felt like a French person had been really friendly to me, but I had really not the best impression, to be honest, of France. And I think a lot of the stereotypes we all carry around,
people were rude,
being snobby, like bordering on rude, and it seemed really chic and inaccessible. So I had crossed France off the list at that time. As life goes, I met a French guy, and first thing I asked him, and I'm very embarrassed to say, is I asked him, well, what's going on? Why don't the French like us? Why don't the French like Americans?
Oh, okay. I thought it was
really
like
taken aback, and now I feel very silly having asked that question. And he said, actually, we love you. We love your culture. We watch your TV series. We always think you're 10 years ahead of where we are in business. And my cousin lives in San Antonio right now, and I visited, and I love just going out for a hamburger, and I was just couldn't believe it. So we just talked about what we were going to do, and I mentioned going back to Southern California. And the more I learned about French culture and things he was telling me, I especially got sold on the 5 weeks of vacation, the healthcare system, just the style of life. I had my impressions of French people. I also thought it would be fabulously expensive, but absolutely completely surprised. First of all, I learned that France is not all about Paris. We moved to Toulon, and we lived there for about 7 years. The first year was challenging because I didn't speak any French. I didn't want to learn it. I was against it. I thought, I'm just going to slide in there and try to do my English. I got some grammar
you have
books
to learn the language.
The bookstore in Ventura, and I studied my grammar, and that's all I really did. And my language skills just took off. People were incredibly nice. They thought you're making at least an effort, even at the market, to say like bonjour and how are you, and talking in the cafe. I went to the same place every day, and little by little my language skills just really took off, and people were extremely helpful and always complimenting me on trying to speak English, and I made friends really easily. It was a complete shock. I found out that the French people are just very reserved. It takes time to get to know them, but once you're in, you're in. So it did take me a good year to make French friends. Something pretty amazing that happened that enabled me to go to Europe in the first place was I got a second passport, and I was born in Southern California, but my father is from Finland, and by some stroke of luck I was able to get a second passport through Heritage. So that was the best $500 I ever spent at the Finnish consulate in Los Angeles. So if anybody has an opportunity to get a second passport, I say go for it. Quickly, for the visa process, great news. It is not difficult to get a visa in France. About 95% of people are going to come over on the long stay visa. The long stay visa is the equivalent of a retirement visa. There's no designated golden visa or retirement visa in France. So you just need to be making French minimum wage, which I think current figures are about, for a single person, I think it's about $1,300. It could be a little bit more, $1,400 a month, dollars. And that is just the French minimum wage. So the site to look at is france-visas.com, and you just have to have 3 months of accommodation when you're applying for the visa. You don't have to have a lease, or you don't have to buy a property. What you do is go to the France-Visas website, you fill out the application, it's processed at a third-party processing center, and you have to do this in your home country, so like US or Canada.
Yeah, of course you have to do it before you actually go there.
Appointment at the processing center, which is VFS. They forward it to the consulate. The turnaround time is about 2 weeks, so it has been streamlined back in the days when you had to go down to the consulate. So the long stay visa is the one you're going to come over on. That's good for 12 months. It renews around the 12-month period, and then you renew for 4 more years, 5 years total in France. You can apply for 10-year residence card or citizenship. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk about why I found France such an attractive destination to move to. This is Bandol, beautiful south of France, about a 10-minute drive from where we live, and a pretty great example
10-minute drive
of why I was attracted to the country. So even in the first year, I got to travel around a lot and discover all of the beautiful natural landscapes. So from vineyards of Burgundy and Bordeaux, the Chateau of the Loire Valley, gorgeous Dordogne. You have the Spanish influences down in Toulouse, the half-timbered fairy tale homes in places like Alsace along the German border. There are a lifetime of very incredibly beautiful places to discover in France. And of course, we have all of our European friends to pop on over. The high-speed TGV train makes it easily accessible to go to Spain or Italy.
The views are incredible.
And also there's low-cost flights. So I thought that while I'm in France and while I have all this diversity of landscape and culture, I can also have the opportunity to visit all of these other amazing European countries, our neighbors just a few hours away. So besides the very attractive landscapes and the ease of traveling around the country, I absolutely fell in love with the lifestyle. I remember that the first lunch we went to in Aix-en-Provence, it lasted 4 hours. It was a Sunday. We arrived, we had an aperitif, and then we had 3 different courses, and I believe, I can't remember the order. There's a salad course and a cheese course.
What is
and then we had desserts, maybe it's 5 or 6 courses in the end. And then after we had what they call in Italian, the digestivo, the little after dinner drink or after lunch drink. And then we went and we sat around and we played board games, and it was just so sweet and nice, and no one is in a hurry. So that really was the catalyst. We eat so well here, and it's not expensive is another thing, and inflation has gone up, especially incredibly in the United States. But going out, I kid you not, you still can get a 3-course meal for lunch. Dinner will be a bit more expensive for $36, and it's a gourmet meal. I go to a lunch little restaurant right where I work. I manage an English language school in Toulon, and I can't believe the quality. So there is a lot of competition, so that helps keep prices down.
Low,
but food is a big factor, and just the lifestyle, being able to take it easy and not have to run around and really focus on friends and family and spending quality time together. The other thing that really sealed the deal was the health care. Again, I've been here since 2010. It's still hard to wrap my head around the health care. I didn't access it, I swear, for years, because I'm just not used to going to the doctor. Even though I had a decent insurance in California, it just wasn't a thing that I did. But healthcare is incredibly cheap. So you are 70 to 80% reimbursed on already very low cost visits. To a visit to the doctor is €25. So when you get the 70% back, you're at $9 a visit. Specialist visits are about $16, $17. There's no age restrictions, pre-existing condition limitations. You don't have to join a network. I had a really serious problem with my ankle, and I went to see the top specialists in the country, and all I did was go to a website that allows you to make appointments. It's called Doctolib, and I found his calendar. I had to wait a couple months. Normally you don't, but he's one of the top specialists in the country, and he's in Marseille, so it's about a 45-minute drive away. But I'm like, I found the top guy, I'm going. And I've done that quite often, is just researching who's the best around and go see them. And I just put my information in, and I got to on his calendar, and I waited, and I got everything top notch, high quality. Another really important thing to mention is that, which is another really incredible fact, if you have a long-term illness, God forbid that you have cancer or Parkinson's, Alzheimer, anything that is going to take months and months of treatment, even longer, you're 100% covered on the system.
That's such a relief.
To mention is that a little sidebar, French taxes. I know French taxes can be very, very scary. Good thing is that you don't need to pay French taxes unless you are working in France, which you cannot do on a long stay visa. So if you're coming over as a retiree, I really feel like it is a paradise, because France has a tax treaty with the United States, so you cannot be double taxed. So if your Social Security, pensions, or anything like that, they can't touch that at all. So people who are paying into the system, like myself, who are working, the healthcare fees are coming directly out of my my paycheck. And just to say that I am even not heavily taxed. I don't make a lot of money, but a decent amount for France, and my tax rate is 7.5%. So people who are getting heavily taxed are people who are quite wealthy and who are working in France. So the tax question, I know it's a scary one. Of course, if you have investments or anything, you should speak to a tax professional, but that is
it's probably going to be expensive if you have businesses.
France. So your healthcare fees are figured from these, from what you're earning in France. And if you have any active income to declare, that was what they would base your healthcare annual fees for. So I will tell you, as a ballpark figure, annual fees, if you're coming over as a retiree, you'll pay between $2,300 $2,700 if you even pay that a year. So that's a ballpark figure.
A year?
You can check with retirees who are living here on Facebook groups like Americans Living a Dream in France, if you want to validate that information. So that is a really, really cool thing.
Is it crazy? I think it's cheap.
Top-up insurance, if you want to just cover that last bit of the 70 or 80%, we are a family of 3, and for private top-up insurance, which would just, similar to what we have in the United States, we pay $100 a month. Another very important thing to mention, which is not the same in other European countries, there is not a private system of healthcare. You can go on the public system. I'm on the public system. I've only done public system. It is completely fine. You can go to a private hospital if you like, but you're getting about the same quality of care. There are no long waiting times, unless of course you're going to have maybe a procedure or something like that. That's quite normal. You get like 3 or 4 months. I've had emergencies. I've opened up the Doctor Leave little schedule, and I've seen somebody the next day for a dentist, for my ankle problem, if I have the flu. So choose a place where there are a lot of doctors. This is very different in the US. You don't want to be in a very rural area, but for example, places like the south of France, major cities, that's a very attractive place, often rated as a top system in the world, and it is very, very affordable.
This is one of the pretty village streets of our hometown of Ulliul. I'm going to talk next about how France can be surprisingly affordable, and even parts of Provence you can buy village homes for under $120,000.
Wow. Okay, so cost of living in France, some very exciting and interesting things to tell you about. Of course, you can't live everywhere in France. For example, you can't live on the Champs-Élysées or next to the Eiffel Tower in Paris for $2,800 a month, but there are many, many locations around the country where you can. So the biggest savings, I mentioned already, healthcare. Healthcare is a huge, huge saving. Number 2 is going to be your housing. So currently housing is on average 34% less than the United States. This is according to the site Numbeo, which I track quite frequently to see any price changes. And huge is rent in France currently is 49% less than the United States. So this is where your savings are going to come in.
Oh my God.
Our house, because we're still working and we are putting our retirement hopes and dreams into our home, is more expensive than a lot of people would probably think about purchasing in France. So our house is about 1,500 square feet, and in 2017 we paid $420,000 for it.
That's
we're in a amazing location. I'm gonna show some snapshots, little clips of our home.
I wanted to see the house.
And we are in the town of
see how much is that
It's
in meters.
A 10-minute drive from Toulon. Why I mentioned Toulon is Toulon has really great deals on real estate, and another cool thing is you are on the seaside. So my good American friend from South Carolina, she is currently renting a 2-bedroom apartment.
Like a beach
It's about
front
980
property?
square feet in Toulon. She has a view of the port and the sea, and she is paying about $950 a month. So I think that is pretty incredible. Again, you're not going to be in Cannes or Nice or Saint-Tropez for that figure. You want to look for some of these off the beaten track places, but they do still
so it's more expensive there.
You can also find these places on the International Living website. Another place that I really enjoy is the inland area of Provence, called Green Provence.
Again, you're not going to find places or village homes near us for under $125,000, but you are going to find them about a 45-minute drive from the seacoast, and this region is called Provence Vert. So you have villages like Cotignac and Lorgue and Carcès, and the nice thing about it too is that there are a lot of expat communities there. So that is really south of France, countryside living. One of your cheapest spots in France, which I absolutely love, which I might have moved there first if I haven't come here, is the Dordogne, which is just stunning with the river and the castles. And there is a thriving American expat population there, which wasn't the case even 10 years ago. So a lot of American expats moving to the Dordogne. Our house, the size of it, you can have that kind of property. You might not want to go that big, but just to give you a comparison, you can have that kind of property in the Dordogne for about $270,000. So that's gone up since COVID. So you're about, I know someone who purchased for about $218,000 before pre-COVID. I think it's okay. So it has gone up, but there are, and that would be like a 1,500 square feet home with a garden, etc. And there are deals like that all around the country. You can definitely go lower than that. Those are some of the examples that I like. Other cost of living, I gotta grab my handy notes here. Groceries, you can expect as a couple to pay $600 to $800 a month. We haven't seen the huge spikes in inflation in the United States. Things have gone up, but I like to shop at places like Lidl. So I do a lot of my shopping at Lidl, and then I do have customer cards that give me discounts at places like Carrefour. Public transportation is cheap. For example, the TGV, the high-speed train, which I absolutely love. You can get yourself on the budget version of that, which is called WeGo, like yes, yes. We go.
Like WeGo. Okay.
Train tickets to Paris, the one way for $17 if you book far enough in advance. So that's really incredible. Wow. Bus pass in your city like Toulon, you wouldn't need a car. Places like Nice, you don't need a car. You've got the tramway, bus I mentioned. You can walk most of these cities, and you've got train travel, which we don't do a lot of train travel in the US, but train travel in Europe is fantastic and an easy way to get around. So you can get a bus pass in Toulon for $38 a month. Electricity,
very cheap actually.
It's 26% less than other European countries, so France is quite low. You're about $80 a month for electricity. Not all homes have gas. About a third of the homes have gas in France. Otherwise, they're heating with electricity. Gas will run you about $78 a month. Water is $45 a month, depending on your usage. The cool thing too about cell phones, they're not outrageously priced either. What we do is we do a bundle, so we do our cable, TV, and it's all one box. It comes to we do our cable TV and our cell phone bundle, and it's $39 a month. And you can get Netflix, and we've got Amazon, and I have Amazon Prime and all that stuff. So you got all the modern stuff over here in France as well. And that's a quick rundown on the prices and how affordable things are. I don't make a lot of money, and I am living very, very well in the south of France.
So I hope you enjoyed this video and also learning more about why I chose beautiful France to live and what I really enjoy about being here. A couple tips if you're thinking of making the move yourself. First of all, make a must-have list. So if climate is involved, if you're thinking city versus village, transportation is a question for you. If you're thinking you don't want to have a car, you would be a place with easy transportation access. Definitely get that list together, and then think about, if it is in the budget, doing a scouting trip. The nice thing is that there are a lot of expats in
it's going to be a good community.
American retirees have already made the leap. So you can contact them ahead of time, schedule meetings, go on a coffee date, get that boots on the ground information, and they're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about where they live, and you can really see, instead of seeing it as a vacation spot, what it's like to live here,
because it's very different
for longer term. And then hop on over to the IL website, International Living website, France page, and that really has the A to Z of your checklist of where to start off. Everything from getting the visa documentation together to if you're moving with pets to seeking short-term and long-term rentals. So hoping to see you all here in La Belle France very soon.
Hopefully, I would love it.
And bonne journée, wishing you a wonderful day from the south of France.
What's going
Okay, yeah, this was incredible. I think, yes, it's funny, but she was like, I don't really make a lot of money, like, I'm not rich, and I still live in the south of France. Because I think the south of France has, like, a reputation, probably. I don't know how true it is after seeing this video, but I think it has a reputation of being, oh, you know, you live, the south of France is, like, a very expensive place. But I think, I don't know if people actually refer to that as in, you know, is it expensive for you as a tourist, or as in, like, compared to what? Because I can see that, you know, this is the south of France, although she did mention that it's the places specifically where she lives and, you know, like nearby places, it is going to be cheaper than something like Cannes. Well, I don't know. She mentioned Nice, actually, not Cannes. And Marseille, I think. So it is like, if you are looking for those places, yes, those places I think are going to be a little bit more expensive. But, you know, if you're willing to actually, like, because that's your dream, or you actually, it sounds like a beautiful place to live. It's like, I'm not looking for specifically that, I want to move to Marseille. You know, I just want to live in the south of France. You know, those are really good things. Those are, like, really good options. And it is cheaper than I thought. Like, basically everything. Like, anywhere I look at it, like, I think it's very cheap. Not just actually the house itself, because I think, especially, like, again, compared to the US, like, the US market is kind of crazy. You can find places like you get between that range of like 200,000. I think that was like the ballpark. Always say a little bit. It can be a little bit more. It can be a little bit less. But that amount of money, like, is not gonna get you, like, if you look at the houses. Obviously, depends on the specific, like, city where you're looking for in the U.S. But for the most part, it's not gonna be like, there are some houses that are a little bit cheaper in the 100,000 range, but they're not like this. You know, they're not this. They're more in, like, very isolated places, and they're, like, in little towns, and they are very, like, she didn't actually, like, showed us her house, but, you know, she has, you know, I can see the views. It's like, this looks like an incredible place. And in the US, you know, those, you know, that money, it's not going to cost you a house like that, because, again, the town where you're going to be able to, like, buy a $200,000 house, it's going to be, again, probably in those, like, you know, isolated in some towns, in some places, and they're just, like, places where flat out you're not going to be able to, like, buy anything with that price. But I think obviously it depends. Like she said, like, you're not going to be able to buy this in something like, in somewhere like Nice. I think it is a little bit more expensive. But she was, like, talking about it, and I was like, I have to say, it's like, it's still cheaper than I was expecting, because it is, again, you always sound like, oh, you know, the south of France is like the place where the rich and the famous live, and it's like, well, I can see that's not, because apparently there's also, like, a lot of expats living there. So it makes me think it's full, or at least maybe she's a little bit, maybe it's because it's her community. Maybe it's not as if I live there, or I go to on vacation, I'm going to be noticing a lot of people. Oh, there's like a lot of American people living here. Maybe it's not like that, although she makes it sound like that. Which I think is it's a little crazy that, okay, so a lot of, like, expats, they have, like, huge communities in the south of France, because, you know, people are just leaving the US because of those insane prices. Although I think that she also, like, she put the example of, like, it's a really good retirement plan because of the taxes is a really good deal. And of course, if you, you know, the increasing cost of living in the US, so this was a really good price. But everything, it's cheaper in like, in general. The houses are I thought, cheaper. The groceries are cheaper. You know, the healthcare, obviously, it's just better, not just cheaper. It's just cheaper and better. And basically everything. So it's like, if I'm looking at it like this, obviously, you know, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to move there. But, you know, it's like sort of like a jokey kind of way. But it's like, how come people are not living there? Like, they should flock there, because it is quite, whatever you think. I know that obviously not the economical cost is not the only reason why people live or move out of places. Obviously, there's a lot of factors, like your house. Some people, you know, really want to be near family, or, you know, sometimes, because I just don't really like the city. That's super valid, of just like, I don't like the city. It's like, okay, yeah, you don't need to go beyond that, of just like, I like living here. I like the city that I live in. That's all. It's enough. But, you know, it's kind of crazy when, again, people are so, like, in this day and age, people are constantly complaining about, again, the cost of living, which is like something, a reality that not everyone, I think anyone can escape. It's like, move to France then, move to the south of France, which I think sounds crazy, obviously, because it's like, isn't that expensive. It's like, no, because it is cheaper than you think. And like whatever way you put it, like it's cheaper, which again is crazy. It's a misconception that I had, and now I know that it isn't really. Maybe I think it's the only way that it's going to be a little bit more expensive if you're a tourist and you're comparing it to maybe other places. But of course, if you're living there, it's going to be a very different thing. And I do like the fact that she also said, like, make sure to actually talk to people that actually live there, and especially other expats, because going and visiting a city, visiting a place, even visiting a country, it's not the same as living there. You can go and you can see, like, you can say, I love this place. It's gorgeous. I can see myself living here, which of course, great, absolutely amazing. You can obviously do that. But keep in mind that things are not going to be exactly the same as you're imagining. Like, you can just go and visit a country and say, like, oh, I can see myself living here and it's beautiful, or whatever, for whatever reasons, specific reasons that you're looking for. You can say, like, I can live here, and maybe you make the decision to move. But actually moving there and living in places is very different. I think, whether if you're, again, it's just like different reasons. Sometimes people don't really adapt, or, again, there's like the little nitty gritty details that sometimes you don't really get to see, because if you're a tourist, I think you have like those like rose colored glasses of like, oh, everything wears better, everything's beautiful. But it's because you're on vacation, not because, the place actually is maybe better. And I think there's a little bit of that also, of like the grass is greener on the other side, and you're probably thinking, oh, everything just, it's better. And it's like, no, you really do. I do like the advice of just make sure you actually either talk to people that actually live there, and hopefully like they're not from there, because they're going to understand a little bit of if you're an outsider to a place, you're going to be more aware of like those little details. So make sure to speak to people that they're not from there. And also, if it's between your possibility, just make it, stay there for some time, to make it a trial period of maybe just like stay there for a few months, of like 6 months. I know that it's not in the possibility, like not everyone can do that, but I think it's a really good sound advice, because again, maybe you're going to realize the reality of it all is maybe a little bit different of what it is when you're just visiting a place, because even sometimes you're just visiting. And maybe you're like, oh, I've been there for years, I've been there. I go every year for 2 weeks. Trust me, it's not the same as living there, long term in a place. So I think that was like a great piece of advice. And I love the little detail of, I want to know, like, is the little where she lives, where I'm guessing, it was always in her house. Does she have like a little olive tree like in the backyard of her house? Because if that's the case, what an incredible situation. That's made me want to move there, actually. It's like, oh my God, you can. I think my favorite little detail about the city that she lives, a little town, is that you can go and you have your produce and you have your olives, and they can press your own olive oil for you. That's incredible. And that would be enough to like tip the scale and actually move there. I think, for me, that's very important. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.